Hi, and welcome to the PEPP Story Live show. Tonight, day 7 of my 31-day challenge. And tonight, we're going to be talking more and more about story and storytelling and the importance of that in creating a great speech. So let's get on and get into the stories. So let me remind you again, it's the PEPP story approach that we're going to talk. It's a very simple formula. It's evolved over a lot of years of me watching, listening to great stories, loads and loads of TED Talks, and realizing that these were the essential elements. These are the ingredients that make great stories and, more importantly, memorable stories. And tonight, it's about speeches rather, but tonight it's about story, and it's story more than anything else that makes story and storytelling that makes for a memorable speech. It enables the speech to be something you will still remember years and years later. And that's actually quite a big challenge when you think about it. I'm sure that you've been to loads and loads of events and conferences where there have been speaker after speaker. You get 3 or 4 speakers and then you have a coffee break. And to be perfectly honest, most of what those speakers talked about, you've actually forgotten before the end of the coffee break. It's just brilliant. You make some notes, and I was been sorting out my office after Christmas, my studio now, and I realized I have a whole shelf of notebooks, of notes I've taken at conferences. Now, some of those notes I remember, some of them I put into action, but I was looking through some of those notebooks and thought, Jack, I'd forgotten that. It just disappeared, vanished. And that's the big problem. But our memories just can't absorb the amount of information that we go to. You go to a conference and you're going to take in a day, 2, 3 days of constant barrage of more and more information. And the reality is you're going to go away and probably not deal with much of it. We can only take on 1 or 2 changes at a time. And when you think that our goal as a speaker in delivering any speech, our goal is to bring about a change. Now, if you're training, you can actually tell somebody what to do, then you can get them to practice it, and you can supervise that, and you can get them to practice until they've done it. But with a speech, you can't do that. You deliver the speech, and you go away. That's it, end of it. It's up to the individual to take whatever message you've given and to put it into action and to make a change in their life. And so they've got to have some motivation inside themselves to do that. And if they can't even remember the message, then there's no way they're going to do anything about it. And if you think at the stories that have passed through time, and when you go back through time, and it's the 1400s when we invented the printing press. It was a long time after that. But I mean, there are still people today grow up and they can't read and write. So stories are the only way that information passes. You can tell people something, but yeah, you've played that game, I know, where you've sat in a room and you've started a message at one end of the room and you've passed it down the line and see what happens at the other end. And there's the old, famous one of this, isn't it, in the First World War, where somebody sent a message by, the radios had broken down, they sent a message by messengers verbally relaying the message. It was send reinforcements were going to advance. And by the time the message got down the other end of the line, it was send 3 and 4pence we're going to a dance. Now, I don't know if that was a true story. It's probably just a humorous story around, but I've played the game and the message gets twisted and turned and it just doesn't make it to the other end. But if you tell a story, you dramatically increase the chances that that message will pass down the line and get there. And that's why we have books like the Bible, packed full of loads and loads of stories, because that's exactly what happened. I think Jesus was one of the greatest speakers and teachers and public speakers of all time. And he told stories, engaged people with fabulous stories. Yeah, all the magic stuff. I'm happy with the stories that he taught. And the same as you look through time, great speakers have come along, and almost every single one of them, great stories. And that's what you have to become. To become a great speaker, you have to become a great storyteller. Everything else we've been talking about so far, really important. You need to have a clear sense of purpose. You need to draw on experience. And I'm going to come to that in a minute. You need to speak with passion. You need to perform, because this is show business. But at the heart of it all are the stories you tell, because that's what people remember. I'm a big fan of TED Talks, and some years back, I can't remember the exact year of it now, Brian Stevenson, a social justice lawyer, told a speech. That speech raised, purely on voluntary donations at the end of the speech, that raised $1 million. $1 million. People donated simply on the basis of stories. Now, Aristotle, the great philosopher from Greek times, said that there were three crucial aspects to the story. And if you build your speech together, part of it has to be ethos, credibility. And that's 10% of your speech. About 25% of the speech is facts, logos, they called it, the facts and details that you need. But by far the biggest part of any speech needs to be emotion, pathos. And it's that which grabs the person and inspires them to take action. And that's what Brian Stevenson did. He inspired people with personal stories that made them say, hey, this guy is really doing something valuable and important, and we want to support it. And of course, the TED audience is the kind of philanthropic audience anyway. But there have been experiments done. And in one experiment, they took a storyteller and they basically recorded her speech. And when they were recording her speech, they had her in an MRI scanner and they tracked the brain patterns and the brain, the activity of the brain while she was telling the story, and they recorded it. And they actually recorded it in English and in her native language, which was actually a Russian language. They then took in a group of students and they put them through the MRI scanner and they played back the story. And they played the story in English and they played the story in the speaker's language. And I can't remember exactly which language that was now. But the point was that when they tracked and checked the students, what they found was that the students who were all English speaking. When they were listening to the story in English, the brain pattern that was taking place, the brain activity that was taking place, identically matched the pattern of the speaker during that talk. So as the speaker was conveying the story, the emotional feelings that came about through the story were being transmitted with the story. Effectively, they were like plugging in the emotional feelings into the person. And you get the same thing, don't you? If you watch a great movie, you become emotionally involved. You get scared with a scary movie. You feel for the hero in a heroic story. Oh, this is just our modern day story of ways of storytelling. 400 or 500 years ago, you would have sat around the fireplace and listened to the story around the fire and listened to the stories being told. Today, we watch a movie. I narrate books, and I know that I have to get really into the story and I have to try and convey that emotion, because I know that if people listen to that story, they will feel the emotion of the story. I have to feel it as a narrator. The storyteller must feel it. And you as a speaker have to do the same thing. You have to become actively involved in that story. So we know now that stories embed. We know that if you check on memorability in terms of how well somebody remembers a speech, those that have a story in are 22 times more memorable. Huge amount of research being done on this at Stanford University to track and see just how much stuff sticks. And if you want to read a good book on some of this, Chip and Dan Heath have done some how to make things stick in the brain. And it's all about story. So where do we get those stories from? Well, the best place is your own stories. Look to your own stories. Check and find out where they're, where are your stories? What are the best ones? Now, I like to talk about extraordinary moments. So what I suggest you do is write out a timeline. for your life. Just write out the timeline and what you're looking for in that timeline as you look through your life. What you're looking for are plot points. Yeah, think about it as a drama. Later in the month, I'm going to be talking more detail about storytelling. We look at specific aspects of the 3-act play and all the various different ways. Today, I just want to introduce you to storytelling. In particular, I want you to start thinking about and building your own stories and building a library of your own stories, because those are the things that you really need. That's what's going to make a difference in your speeches, when you can draw on stories. And I'm going to talk about a couple of my own in a minute, just to give you some idea of what we're doing. So, write out your timeline, identify the plot points. Now, what I'm talking about there is the changes of direction. I'm pretty sure that you are not where you expected to be or thought you might be when you were 10 years old. Yeah, at 10 years old, you were going to be a police officer, you were going to be a firefighter, you were going to be a ballerina, you were going to be a concert pianist, there's all sorts of things that you might have wanted to be. They probably didn't happen because things change and move you in direction. At 18, I was going to be a nuclear engineer, but I didn't get the A-levels. And I'll come back to what happened as a result of that. The transformation that shifted me off in a completely different direction. I'm going to talk about that in a second. So start to write those stories down. Look at all those places where everything started to shift, change, move off in another direction. I call them extraordinary moments, and they're often not big events. Sometimes it's just tiny little things, tiny events that take place. Let me give you an example of one of those. At 18 years old, I'd been to college. I'd done 2 years at college, and I'd been taking maths and applied maths and physics. And my dad had been an engineer. He's a Rolls-Royce engineer. He used to do aircraft engines, and that was the direction I was being pushed. I lived in the West Country. Most of the work was either working on the farms, or for boys at the time, that it was on farms, or it was in small engineering companies. It was a small engineering environment, and that was where I was being directed. So I decided to take physics and all those things. It didn't work. I came back. I'd got maths, and that was it. I'd failed everything else. So I persuaded my dad to let me go back to college, and I went to the college for a third year. And I thought, well, what am I going to do? And I decided I was going to do economics and social, and take the social sciences route, because those were things I could do quickly in a year and at least get some A-levels and maybe do a degree in economics. And I'm sitting in the college talking to a friend of mine who was back for that year. He said, why don't you get involved in doing the college drama group and do the play? Every year, the college had to put on a play. It was always a Shakespeare play. It was always the play for the GCSE exam. And that guaranteed us a 6-night performance. And I said, well, I don't know. I'm not sure whether I want to do that. I was a little bit nervous about getting up in front of people. And he said, no, you should do this. Anyway, we had the conversation, and he introduced me to a few of the people that were there, and there was a few people. There were some people I really fancied, and I thought, oh, do you know what? I'm going to do it. So I decided to compete for the big part. They were doing Julius Caesar. This is obviously before I changed gender, before anybody knew about that part of me, and I decided I would compete, and I learned most of the lines. For the big Mark Antony part. That was the big part that was up ready for grabs. And I delivered it with passion. And as a result of that, I got the part. But the director said, well, okay, I was impressed with that. That was quite good. But it's a big part, and you need to be doing some of the drama training. And I found out that the whole of the drama course fitted in with all of my free periods while I was at college. I thought, well, I might as well do this. So I ended up doing a whole drama course and took the grade 8, which was the equivalent of an A-level in drama and speech and drama. And as a consequence of that, I then went off to Butlins and became a Butlins redcoat. And as a result of that, when I got into a job, I very quickly found myself doing sales and marketing. And I didn't actually get into drama school and go down that route, but I ended up being a speaker. So my path to becoming a speaker started just with a little conversation with a friend of mine who encouraged me to join the drama group and do audition for a play. And that totally changed my life. The whole of everything I did for the rest of my life was transformed because I got the bug for performance. I loved what I was doing. And I would strongly recommend, if you can, get involved with a drama group. It's really, really useful for performance techniques and helping you to improve your voice and all manner of things. But you see what I mean? I can use that story in all sorts of ways to talk about the way life can suddenly change, to talk about accessing your passion. There's all sorts of ways in which I can use that story. And that's the really important thing. You have to think, when you've got all your stories and you've started to accumulate them, which ones do you use? Which of your story do you use in your speech? Well, you start with the end in mind. What's the point that you want to make? What are you trying to say? And then you look back into your stories and think, right, well, what are the best stories that I've got that would help me to make that point, to illustrate that from my life, from the way? Because as a member of the audience, I want to hear about you. It's your stories I want to hear. Don't get involved with other people's stories. I told you the story about Brian Stevenson, but that's Brian Stevenson's story. I can use that as an anecdote, but I can build the story of my move into drama and the change in direction. I can turn that into a 10-minute story with all sorts of drama and excitement of things that were the tough bits of getting there. And we'll maybe explore that a little bit as we get further along. So start writing that timeline. Start picking up the things that you think are important in your life, the points at which your life veered off in a completely new direction. Those are the extraordinary moments. Those are the moments, and sometimes you will hardly know. Sometimes it's a big event. Yeah, I went to a speakers convention in America in 1995, changed my life again, completely redirected everything, and as a result, the Professional Speaking Association was born in the UK. But it was that experience of attending that and thinking, oh, we've got to have this in the UK. And it fired my passion and drove me for the next 5-6 years to get the PSA sorted out. There are lots of things that have changed my life, and I really didn't expect it to happen. I had no way of expecting I would be where I am today. So start with the ending. When you've got your stories, then you can start to pick at them, start looking at them. Which are the ones that are really important? Which are the ones that you can use to illustrate important points? When you're trying to think of a speech, just start to look back into your life. Look at the things you're doing. One of the benefits I found of being involved in Toastmasters as a regular member of Toastmasters is that you're constantly having to put speeches together, impromptu speeches, and always you're drawing on personal experience. Remember, that's our second point, draw on experience. And it's the experiences which give you the route to the stories. Then you've got to shape them, perform them, and put them together. But it's coming from experience. That's the stories you're going to find. So start with the end in mind. Find a way to grab attention. I'm telling a story about my drama. It's all about failing everything. Suddenly crashed and burned. Where do we go from here? It's always good to try and start from a point. Start in the middle of the action. Don't do long, slow build-ups. Just get into the action quickly. If you think about most of the great movies, you'll get into the movie and boom, you're in there running. And maybe it'll be you'll start at the end and then come back at the beginning and find out where you started. We'll look more at that later on. Start with action, engage emotions, and finish with a call to action. What's the point? What's the point you want to make to the story? What should the audience learn? And don't overdo it. Sometimes people can get it. They hear the story and think, oh, yeah, got that. It's a good story. But stories are crucial. That's what we're doing. So there we are, story. We've got our 5 elements all sorted. Passion, purpose, experience, passion, performance, story. 5 elements that make a great speech. we need them all. They all interlock. And you're going to be building on those. We're going to be looking at different ways to get all of that to work over the next, the rest of this month. So please do join me. I'm going to be back tomorrow. I've said 5 p.m. It probably won't be 5 p.m. We'll see. I'm going to try and get onto that, but it'll probably be a little later than 5 p.m. But join me sometime after 5 p.m. for day. Now it's going to be. I forgot to edit that line, didn't I? I keep thinking it's going to be there, but anyway, it's going to be day 8 we're on to. And don't forget, if you need some help putting together a TED Talk, doing a speech, I can help you find those stories, help you find things that are going to help you find the way to start with a good bang opening that draws people in or gets people engaged emotionally in what you're trying to deliver. Just drop me a line if you want to talk about me doing some coaching, and let's arrange a 30-minute session. More than happy to put aside 30 minutes just to help you see where I can help you, see whether you can work with me, see whether I can work with you. Have we got something that fits? Do we gel? Speaker coaching is available. Just drop me an email and we'll get sorted out. So I hope you've enjoyed that tonight. Just a few thoughts around helping you to become a better speaker. And I look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Take care.